It's my pleasure to introduce Evan Clark. Evan is on the board of the directors of the Secular Student Alliance. He is also the founder of, well, one founder, I guess, of the Secular Student Alliance at California Lutheran University, which is indeed Lutheran, if you didn't happen to know that. What's really impressive, though, is not just that he founded the Secular Student Alliance at California Lutheran, but that the year after he did that, he went on to become the student body president of California Lutheran University in a contentious election. There was a fist fight. No, there wasn't a fist fight, but in the remake, there will be in the movie. Yeah. So yeah, what?
Cage match.
Cage match. Wow, I don't know about that. We might not have the budget for a cage match, but we'll think about it. Anyhow. So not only has Evan, been able to run a really successful local group, but and not only is he on the national board of directors of the Secular Student Alliance, where, believe it or not, we have meetings occasionally. They never go past midnight. That never happens. And not only that, but he was, student body president for a whole university. So he has all sorts of experience running all sorts of meetings. So he is a fantastic expert to talk to us about running meetings. Please join me in welcoming Evan Clark. And you can do like 5 minutes Q&A after this is up.
Okay. Cool. I love all this technology. Okay. It's like a pager. Ugh. Okay. I'm Evan Clark. Who has a Twitter here?
I do!
Find me. Feel free to do that right now. If you have a Facebook, who has a Facebook? If you don't have a Facebook, that's a little odd these days. But find me. Part of conferences is networking, and I want you to network with me. Feel free to ask me any questions after this meeting. I only have 20 minutes, so this will not have all the information we need. Okay? I also want to tell you about the meeting you are missing next door. So Shauna, she's great if you haven't met her yet. That's her Twitter. That's her Facebook. Write it down right now. I'll give you 20 seconds. I've had Britney Spears stuck in my head. But really great. She's going to give a great talk. All right. So when we talk about running a meeting, I feel like I first need to define that there are 3 different kinds of groups in my mind. And I kind of want to break them down into these categories. There's an exclusive group, an inclusive group, and an interfaith inclusive group. The way I like to look at these is that an exclusive group, and it doesn't mean that like we don't allow people that aren't atheists. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is you might have a lot of members that aren't out of the closet. You might be afraid to talk about atheism publicly on your campus. And so you generally are just creating a tight-knit community. You're looking to create bonds for secular people. And you're not encouraging the Christians to stop by your meeting. That's pretty exclusive, and it's okay. There are a lot of groups that are like that, and I'm not saying it's wrong. Just recognize that that might be you. There's also an inclusive group. This is ones that doesn't mind if a Christian stops by their meeting. It's not to say that they market to them, but it's that you are a very inviting group. You're open-minded, and you want people there. Then there's interfaith inclusive. These are the people that are like, Mormons, come to our meetings. And then they're like, why didn't you bring your friends when they show up? It's a whole different branch of inclusive in my mind. And I like to think that my club was all 3 of these at different times. So they're all different and unique. I'm not saying anyone's better than another, but recognize that you probably fit in one of these categories. All right. So when you think about your meeting, location is very important. People don't always think about that. It's like a minor detail. People are like, oh, we'll just have it in this classroom that I have a lot of classes in, or let's have it in my residence hall lounge or something. There's a lot of factors that go into a location, whether you've thought about them or not. And some of them are very meaningful to people because it's the first impression. So ask yourself, is your location easy to find? This can be a very simple mistake. Let's say you have a lot of science majors, so you're like, yeah, let's just put it in that big conference room in the science building on the 2nd floor. You're not going to get anyone other than science majors that are going to find your room. That's not smart. So think about, is it very easy to find? If you were to post it on your website or on your Facebook, are people going to go, oh, I know where that is? Or are they going to have to look it up? Second, is your location in a private or public location? This goes back to what kind of group you are. Are you an exclusive group? Are you an inclusive group? Are you an interfaith inclusive group? If you're an interfaith inclusive group, maybe you want to meet in the chapel. I don't know if your campus has one. If you're an exclusive group and you have a lot of people out of the closet, it's probably not best to meet in the cafeteria during dinner when you guys are talking about religion. They're not going to be comfortable with it. Their roommate might spot them. There's a lot of issues that can come up. So just because you found a good room right away doesn't mean it's the right room. Think about your group and how that location would affect them. Is your location accessible to students? Again, this is one that can be very easily forgotten about. So commuter students don't always have access to the residence halls. Think about that. If you're going to have it in the big lounge in the big hall in the center of campus, can commuters even get in? They might try, and if they don't get in that first meeting, they're probably never going to come back. Likewise, if you have it in an upperclassman hall, can the first years get into that hall? And if that is an issue, you need to make it known to everybody that might be coming and put it on your marketing if you're marketing around campus. Is it a neutral location? Again, this gets back to what kind of group you are. So if you're meeting in the chapel on your campus, you might have trouble attracting atheists that are not out of the closet to come to your meeting. If you're going to meet in the science room that is like Christianity's trying to kill evolution and God delusion is a giant book on the wall, like that's not very inviting if you want some new diverse members to show up. So really think about what is a neutral location for people. Likewise, some people have their first meetings when they're starting a group in their room. Not everyone wants to be out other than in your community. So if your roommates aren't part of that group and you have it in your room, you're actually outing your members. So just think about what is neutral when you're thinking about your group. Internet access, I put it on there just because it should be common sense, but make sure you have internet access that's going to be at least 100 times during every one of your meetings. We're going to want to look something up, find a YouTube clip, just make sure you have internet access. Most campuses, this isn't a problem, but just in case, I threw it on there. And TV, this is in case your club wants to watch a movie or do a presentation, bring in a speaker to do a presentation. So you want to have consistent location throughout the year. And if you're in a room that doesn't have a TV and you want to have a presentation or watch a movie, you have to move, which is, again, challenging to bring in new members. So just think about having everything in your normal location space. An extra tip, reserve your location. Almost all of your campuses, you can reserve that spot. You can say, we meet here weekly at 5 o'clock on Thursdays, and we want to reserve it for the Secular Student Alliance. And they will go, okay. And if another event wants that space, they have to get permission from you. Check with your campus. They're all different, but very high likelihood that you can reserve your meeting location. All right, when to meet is a big discussion that is going to happen with every group, especially you want all of you getting started, and really focus on other clubs that are like-minded to you and when they're meeting. So let's say you're slow to get organized this year and all the multicultural clubs have really organized and you know your members are really active in all those. You're probably going to have to plan around those. So recognize that, and then there's some great tools for organizing meetings, such as Doodle or Tingle.me. These are group scheduling software to where you all throw in the times you're available, and it'll show you the best times that everyone can meet. It's the simplest thing you'll ever use. Check this out if you haven't before. All right. Now, if we go into the different types of meetings, before we discuss each one of those, I'm going to break them up into 3 different kinds. There's discussion meetings, there's information/planning meetings, and there's social meetings. I shouldn't have to explain too much about each one of those, but they are very different, and recognize the differences. And if you're an active group, I would encourage you to do all of them. So, before you even start your meeting, though, should you do icebreakers? This is a big question. People talk about team builders all the time. How many of you hate team builders? Okay, too bad. But The thing about team builders is we've created this perception that you're forcing me to do something, so I'm going to call them icebreakers so it doesn't sound so bad. And an icebreaker can be anything. It can be a question to start off the meeting. Every one of my group meetings, I have everyone say their name, even if everyone knows each other. They say their name, where they're from, and I come up with a question or two on the spot that they have to answer. So let's say you got to say your name, where you're from, and your favorite song from the 90s. And you have it starts your meeting immediately. Now, they're really good for discussion and social meetings. If you really need to get going on a planning meeting, you know everyone really well, probably don't need icebreakers that much. I would still recommend them though. So why you should use icebreakers? It kills time. Now that sounds like a negative, but you are college students. You show up late everywhere. So if you want to start your meeting on time, start with the icebreaker with those that are there, and people will file in as you get through the icebreaker. So instead of waiting for everyone to get there, then do the icebreaker and you're 30 minutes late, start the icebreaker and you're done once everyone's there and you've only spent about 15 minutes. It engages everyone immediately, and this is probably the most important point of all of them. If you have a new guest, and they are coming to your meeting and they don't know anything about you, they're probably a little bit nervous about what's going on, what's going to happen, but you give them an opportunity to speak. And it doesn't matter what it's about. They get to open their mouth and communicate with you all. And that's a huge step for people. If they sit there, if they show up and they don't say anything their entire meeting, why would they come back? What is the draw? Unless it's just like, that is the most intellectual conversation I've ever had, I have to come back. Most likely people like to engage with each other. So again, just sharing what your favorite ice cream is or where you grew up with people creates that bond in a community. And then it helps with names. This is my friend Chelsea. I am clicking her, but Chelsea Toston, she showed up. She transferred into Cal Lutheran this past semester. About 3 weeks into the semester, she's decided to come to our meetings, and she knew absolutely no one. And our vice president, who's the most enthusiastic man I've ever met, and gets like 5 new people a week to our meeting, was like, oh, you have to go. So she shows up. He wasn't there. She knows absolutely no one at this meeting. She sits down. She's pretty outgoing though, so she could handle herself. And we do an icebreaker. And we do your name, where you're from, and your most memorable childhood item. And we went around, and a girl named Molly, she had a Barbie that she used to put toothpaste in the hair in, so all the hair fell out. We had a guy named Sam who was born on the 4th of July, and so their parents bought him an Uncle Sam suit, and it was like a American flag suit. And there was this girl named Rebecca from Texas who had a blanket. That was her favorite thing. But in her story, she used to eat her blanket while she was sleeping and almost destroyed the entire blanket. Well, Chelsea, for the next 4 weeks, only knew people by those stories. She didn't know anyone's names. But at least she felt a connection with them. When she spotted them on campus, she goes, that is blanket eater. But that's better. It's so much better than not remembering anything about someone. Discussion meetings. You need a good moderator for discussion meetings, and this is very important. And so if you are not a good moderator, recognize that now and start looking for one in your group. It doesn't always have to be the president of your club. It's actually a really good thing to delegate if you're looking for things to delegate. A good moderator is someone that's good at asking open-ended questions. So when somebody says something, you go like, well, how did that make you feel in your community? It's a very open-ended question. And then they give you an answer and you go, does anyone else have a similar story? Those are all open-ended questions, and that's how you keep a discussion going. Willing to facilitate heated arguments. Not everyone's good at this. Some people freak out when people argue over things. A good facilitator will be able to manage the next question and keep people on task. And is prepared to listen more than talk. And this is the hardest thing about being a moderator. I've never met more opinionated people than atheists. And we love to talk about what we're passionate about. But if you're going to be a moderator, you actually need to share your opinion last. You need to let people be comfortable sharing. And so you need to share last, and that means listening first. And that's a challenge for most people. For the actual discussion, pick topics that excite your group. Each group is different. I can't tell you how often I hear about groups that focus only on philosophy, and people are like, I'm sick of it. I want to talk about evolution, or I want to talk about politics. And they're constantly, they feel trapped. You're going to lose those members if you keep up. Recognize what people's passions are, what they like to talk about. Hit a diverse range of topics. It's not hard. Ask them what they want to talk about. Send out discussion topics before meetings. So this is just a really good tip that subconsciously gets people prepared. So if you want to talk about religion in secular societies, just put that in your email reminder. And they're not necessarily going to look up articles, but they might notice something in their day that they could use in that meeting. Set group communication norms. Not all groups have to do that. They're just really good at communicating, but it's really good sometimes to go, we're only going to make I statements today when we're talking about diversity issues. Or we're going to, maybe we're going to let the moderator pick who speaks because some people talk over others. It's sometimes good to establish group norms, group communication norms before you begin, and then embrace differing opinions. There's nothing funner than when a Republican really stands up for something at one of these Secular Student Alliance meetings. I know on my campus, and most likely a lot of yours, but it's such a good thing. It really is. You need to embrace that and not scare them away from coming back. And then the more diverse your group, the more diverse your discussions. It's tough to describe. It's just a fact. So think about it. For planning meetings, and these are the technical meetings where you're like, we got a big event coming up, we need to make buttons, yada, yada, yada. Make an agenda if you want to get stuff done. I know a lot of groups that get together and they're like, oh, it's my best friends. And suddenly you just talked about South Park for a half hour. We need to get stuff done during these meetings because that's why they're different from the other two meetings. Smaller is better. This is more when you're like brainstorming a large project. 20 people will not come up with better ideas than 4 necessarily. 20 people will bicker for 20 hours. 4 people will come up with a decision. And then keep people motivated. There's nothing worse than people burning out. And if you're a leader, you need to constantly get people excited about what you're doing and where you're going with it. Social meetings, these are the fun meetings. Ding. Okay. So what they think is I'm here to have fun, and what we know is you're actually building community. Fun with a group of people is another way to remember and interact with those people. So suddenly they're not just people in your discussion group, they're people that have stories outside of that you have a connection with outside of that. And there's so many ways to do that. Here are just some fun ideas: pizza parties, movie nights, scavenger hunts, take a professor out to dinner, do a field trip somewhere. My group made a baby cake. You can do anything. This is where groups have the most creativity and should use the most creativity. You all know how to have fun. You all know what is great for your group and around campus. So go crazy. You'll come up with the most creative ideas. I don't need to tell you them. And then secret cheat codes to kind of end this up. Free stuff gets people to meetings. Now some people argue that it's, then they're just coming for the food. They don't value it. You're still getting your message across. You're still connecting with the people. Give it a shot. I can't tell you how many people that are now the most active kids in our club came because of pizza. And it sounds silly, but it really works. Amazing guests or speakers really do bring people in. We bring in our religion professors as guests to our meetings. We have a great Sikh on campus, and he comes talks about Sikhism. People love that professor on campus, and so we're able to bring in a very different crowd of people. And enthusiasm works. Enthusiasm. This is how you get people to your meeting. This is how you get people to stay at your meeting. The excitement. That guy Sam who brings in 5 people a week is the most exciting, engaging person I've ever met in my life. And that's why it works, and that's why our meetings work so well. To have people like that and people that know that they're good at this. So take an extra 2 seconds, think about how you can get this group excited about what they're doing and keep everything moving and bring in the next generation of leaders. But thank you.